Here we go. It's 5 in the morning here, so I'm gonna be pretty quiet. I've got a basket here that's full of half lump coal and half briquettes. And now I'm gonna light them up. So here I've got a 12-pound brisket from Omaha Steaks. And I am going to take it out of the packaging here and trim it up. Yay! It's just after 5 in the morning, so I want to be very, very quiet here when I talk. You'll hear me get louder as I progress throughout the day. But anyway, what we got here is a 12-pound brisket from Omaha Steaks. And you'll notice that with the brisket, we have two sections. We have the point and the flat. So the point is going to be over here. It's actually, if I flip it over, you may be able to see it better here. But anyway, we got this vein of fat that runs through that separates the point and the flat. It's over here, actually. So this part that I'm looking at right here that's all exposed is the flat. That's the leaner cut. And then here, under this decal of fat there, is the point. So yeah, the point's just more here up here at the top. But as we trim, we'll be able to see that better. So what we want to do first off is try and trim off some of the silver skin as much as possible. So I'm going to do that like this. Just get my knife just under the silver skin and slice through. Use a bony knife. That's the preferable knife that I use for this stuff. And preferably a sharper bony knife. This one, it's not as sharp as my other bony knife. You know what? In fact, I'm going to grab my other bony knife. Okay, I'm back. This one's a little bit sharper, as you can see there. All right. Now you don't have to trim off all the silver skin, but a lot of it would be good. Because the thing is, with the silver skin, it's going to make it a little bit more chewy. You don't want that on a brisket. You don't want a chewy brisket. Anyway. You know, I'll get this little section over here too. And right there. Okay. You may get a little bit of meat off when you trim, and that's okay. Just a little bit's fine. Okay, and let me get over in here too. All right, now what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna flip this over. Now you'll notice that with the brisket, it slopes down, so it gets thicker, then kind of slopes down this way. We got a good amount of meat right here, which I like. Because that's the thing, is in the flat you want it to be fairly thick, even to the very end here. So, anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try and square it up a little bit. So I'm going to trim off like right here. And another thing, when you're trimming a brisket, you want it to be cold. Because if you let it sit out a little bit, then it's going to be harder to cut because it's not going to be as solid. It's going to be flimsy. It's going to be harder to trim up. Anyway. There, as I'm trimming right here, you can tell I'm getting to the point. You see some really good marbling right there in the meat. That's awesome. I love seeing that. In fact, here, I'm going to flip this back over. Because what I want to try and do is trim off some of this older looking meat. You can see the contrast here. That looks very fresh. This, not so much. So that's what I'm trying to trim off. I want to try and make it smooth too. I don't know. I like when they look smooth. Okay, so that side's looking good. Oh, and another thing, when you're smoking this thing long term, like you may see little sections of meat like this right here. See, that shows up on camera very well. This right here, that's not gonna cook well. That's just gonna be burnt. So just cut that off. Try and make it smooth. All right. Oh, and then here at the ends, let's work on this side next. See, I think we're good there. Actually, like this part right here, super thin, cooking for like 11, 12 hours, that's not gonna cook well. That's not gonna hold up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim that off. I know it won't look perfect on there, it won't look perfectly square or rectangular, but this is just gonna burn. And also, now that I've done this, I actually know which way the grain's going. So there's that. This is just what I do, y'all. Okay. Now for this part, let's trim into this. It's a ton of fat, so it's hard fat. It's not really going to render, but I'm going to cut into it. Anyway. Flip that over here. Glad I switched knives, actually. Okay. When we get to the top here, I'm not going to trim off too much fat. So normally you want to trim down to about 1/4 inch of fat on the top here. On the fat cap, that is. So you'll see right here, like right here, that's awesome. Here, I'll trim this down some. Because that fat's not going to render. It's going to be really chewy. And you'll see right here too, you got a big hunk of it. Hold on, like right there. See that? It's just thick. So we'll cut into this. Go. See, this is why you want it colder, so you can trim down that fat cap really well. Now sometimes you might actually expose a little bit of meat there, and that's okay. It happens. All right, and I'll see right here it gets really thick. So I'm going to try and trim down some of that too. Be a lot easier if it was facing me. I'll try and get it to face you. So you see what I'm doing here. Now you may say there's a difference in the look of the fat from here that's freshly cut and then this has been exposed for a while. It's okay, you can leave it like this, some of that fat. I mean, if you are a pro, expert level, and a precisionist, you can trim all that down, but I'm not gonna spend all that time and do that. Let's see. It's probably pretty thick in here too. Here. See, it's getting pretty thin right there, so I'm gonna leave that alone. Honestly, I might trim a little bit more right here, actually. Every brisket's gonna be different in the spots you're gonna trim off, because every brisket you get from the store is gonna have a different thickness of fat in different spots. Okay. One side we haven't really looked at is over here. I mean, I did trim that off a little bit, but not much. I remember at first I used to cut into this a lot. You don't really need to, because you can have it be all smooth and such. But see here, you can start to see the difference between the point and the flat. So we've got the flat all here, and the point just runs to like right here. Anyway, good times. All right, I'm gonna call that good. So now what we're gonna do is season it. I like to do a salt, pepper, garlic based rub. And today I'm gonna be using brisket rub from Lane's Barbecue. I love this stuff, I swear by it. And what we're gonna do with this fat, we're gonna set this aside. As you can see, I mean, you probably trim off a couple pounds of fat here. So keep that in mind when you're buying like a 12-pound brisket. Really, it's gonna be about 10 pounds of actual meat and fat that you're cooking, which shrinks over the duration of the cook. So it's even less than that. So keep that in mind when you're cooking for audiences. Now, if you have a meat grinder, you can keep these trimmings. Use that fat to put in your meat grinder with even some leftover brisket meat or other kind of meat that you may have as well, and make burgers out of it. Anyway, it's a good idea there for you. So I'm going to season this part. I'm not going to season this part a ton because it's fat, but I'm going to do it anyway. Got to make sure you get all sides too. So we are going to do this. We're going to get this side. We're going to get this part here too. Like I say, all sides here. Flip it over. Oh, yeah, this side here. I'm gonna cut into this just a little bit. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'll cut into that just a little bit. There. Still keeping this very smooth here. Okay. You know what? Some spots are gonna bug me. I'm gonna trim that. Okay. season the rest of this. You'll use a good amount of seasoning on this thing. It's a big hunk of meat, but you're gonna love that taste in the bark. Now there's schools of thought here on fat side up, fat side down, however you want to cook it. Keep in mind, a lot of indirect cookers, especially like pellet grills, the heat is going to come directly from the bottom, the indirect heat. So usually you want to have that fat cap layer as a protection for your meat there. I'm going to be using a drum smoker today, which the indirect heat does come from the bottom. However, there is a good amount of space between the heat source and the grill surface. So I'm actually going to do this fat side up. So I'm going to cook it like that and throw it on the grill. So let's go. So one thing you may notice is that I lit up the coals on one side here because this is going to be a long cook. So what I want to do is light the coals up on one side and just let them slowly burn across the basket. That way I'm going to get longer burn in my grill for when I'm smoking. So I'm going to put some wood chunks strategically here. Got a lot of flame here, so I'm going to try and avoid that. Put one there, one on the end as well. And you know what, I'll throw one right here, just near the edge of that too. That way I can try and keep an even wood, oak wood smoke throughout the cook. Now when I put the deflector on, that flame's going to die down. So keep that in mind. Okay, do this with two hands. Like that. Then I'm going to put the grates on. Oops. Put the grates on like that. Here, let me back up. So now with when I put this lid down, there's going to be a lot less oxygen getting into the smoker, so that way the flames are going to die down a little bit. So we can get to the ideal smoking temps that we want. I'm looking at about 225, 250 degrees. And at least on my drum smoker, you'll see here that I've got dampers open just a little bit. They're like crescent moons, because that helps dictate the airflow there. All right, lifting this up. Got that smoke rolling. I'll throw this brisket on. Just like that. Great thing about this Oklahoma Joe Bronco Pro that I'm using here is that it's pretty wide, 22 inches, so I can fit this brisket on here. Now I'm going to put a temperature probe in here. I'm actually using my Smoke X4 from Thermoworks. So anyway, if I put it in up top, because I like to put it in like where the point and the flat overlap. However, I don't want to put it up top on this one because the lid doesn't have a whole lot of space there. So I'm going to insert the probe from the side. Try and measure the middle of the thickest part. There we go. All right. Come check on this. I'd say about once an hour I'm going to spritz it with beef broth. All right, it's been just over an hour, this brisket on the grill. And I've got my beef broth that I'm going to spritz with. I'll spritz this about once an hour. I do that to keep the meat from drying out. So far this thing's looking pretty good. Now it is time to remove the brisket. Temperatures, internal temps are in the 160s. So now I'm going to take some butcher paper. I'm gonna give it about, I don't know, probably a good 3-4 feet or so. I'm gonna use this slide cutter here. Cut that. I'm gonna use this as a blueprint for the next one. the next sheet, because I'm going to do 2 sheets here. I do that because I want to make sure that the butcher paper is wide enough for what I need to do. So there's that. I'll take that and slide straight across. Awesome. All right. Time to go get the brisket off the grill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this heavy-duty spatula here to scoop it up, and then I'm going to put it right here on the paper. So stay tuned. There's the brisket right there. Looks really good, huh? I think so. So now it's time to take this, scoop it on up, and remove it. Here we go. Lay the butcher paper down. At least lay the brisket down the butcher paper right there. All right, I am still recording. That's awesome. So actually what I want to do with this brisket, I want to put this more this way, just a little bit. It's hot. I don't have gloves because the price of those nitrile gloves too damn high nowadays, right? Man, way too much nowadays. All right, I'll get some soon. Just need to get them on order. All right, so you'll see that I've got the paper overlapped here. What I'm going to do is tuck this in. In fact, here, I'm going to turn this around just because I was like, oh, Mamma mia, that's hot. Because the way that this brisket is cut right here, when I wrap this up, oh, hold on. That's the wind. Awesome. This is real life, y'all. I'm gonna fold it like that. And now, with that, I'm gonna flip it over like that. Make sure the sides are tucked in. Do it one more time. And one more time. So, there we are. I believe I am now, well, fat side up or fat side down. Let me check. Get a little peek in here. All right. I am fat side down at this point. But when you wrap at this point, I don't think it really matters. Because you want to get this wrapped up, tucked in tight. Not my best job today. But you know what? It's in there really good though. Okay, I'm gonna take this back to the grill. Now we put this back on the grill. I'll lay it just like that. And the meat probe I used earlier, I'll put that back in here. I'll do it on the side, right in the center there. And so the internal temp I'm looking for right now is about 203. That's when I want to pull it. Otherwise, I'm just going to close the lid and just let it ride. See ya. And here we are. It has hit 203 degrees internal temp. Using my thermometer signals here, we're able to test that. Anyway, this thing has been on almost 12 hours, so now I'm going to remove it and put it on the cutting board. Huh. All right, there we go. Okay, so here we are, brought it inside. Now I'm just holding this with my hand. We're gonna unwrap this thing and see what it looks like on the inside. Okay, so I'm just gonna unwrap it, brought it inside. So anyway, whew, that's pretty hot. Maybe I should do this with 2 hands. We're getting there. Seems a little sticky here. In fact, I'm going 2 hands. Just got Mrs. Learning to Smoke to help me out here. Just rip this open. Not the fanciest way to do this, but look at that. Wow. I wish you could smell this. I mean, look at the jiggle on that thing. It's really awesome. We're gonna let this rest, expose here for a little while, and then we are going to start shredding into it, or slicing into it, I should say. Here we are, we're gonna slice into it now. I usually like to slice right in the middle of it first. Ooh, look at that. No squeeze there, but it's got a great smoke ring, as you can see. Fat side up. Boy, that is beautiful. All right. Very excited to dig into this, guys. Anyway, good times. Not sure if it's gonna pass the bend test, but does it pull apart good? In fact, I'll eat it. Mmm. That melts in your mouth. It's so good. Okay. And that's just the flat. The point's gonna be awesome. So, anyway, thanks for checking this video out. Please go to learnyousmoke.com. Check out my blog. Check out other videos on this page. Like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.